It is fascinating to see what stories the media focuses on day in and day out, because it tells you so much about their worldview or their politics in a whole range of ways. And certainly in the aftermath of a horrific mass shooting, whether they decide that this story deserves wall-to-wall coverage, is a political call to action, and is something that should be used to shame their political opponents, irrespective of really what the facts are of the situation. That is something that we see happening time and time again. I bring it up because right now, Clay and I talked to you yesterday about the shooting that occurred over the weekend at a dance hall, where you had 10 people who were murdered by this guy who was just a disgruntled, deeply unhappy person who just turned to the worst kind of evil, killed 10 people, and was going to kill more. He moved to a second location. I actually shared this clip on Twitter. It's remarkable. Brandon Tsai was on scene there, and he was the individual, the hero, who this guy is reloading. Now, I know a lot of people think, oh, I would have done this too. A lot of people would freeze. You've got somebody who has, I think it's been repeatedly described as a pistol, but it's, or rather as an assault rifle in the media. But it's really a pistol with a folding stock, I think. But either way, it's illegal under, technically a pistol with a folding stock, illegal under California law. This guy, Brandon Tsai, essentially rushed the shooter, who you can, I think, safely assume otherwise would have been able to kill another 10, 15, 20 people who were helpless, defenseless at this. So this guy saved a lot of lives. But that shooting occurred over the weekend, and as we know, the Democrats immediately jumped into oh, this is a hate crime. And I don't just mean in general Democrats, top legislators, senators, Democrats associated closely with the Biden administration, the White House. There was another shooting over the last few days. 7 people were killed in this shooting, and this shooting also involved an Asian American,
elderly Asian man,
a person,
both
a
of
person, them. A person of Asian descent, a Chinese agricultural laborer, 67 years old, so he's almost a senior citizen, who was in the San Francisco area, Half Moon Bay, went into his work facility and just started murdering people, shot 7 people. In cold blood. Now, that came 72 hours after the other individual, who actually killed 11 people, one of them additionally succumbed to injuries, killed 11 people at a Lunar New Year celebration in Monterey Park, which is near Los Angeles. 2 major mass shootings by 2 Asian assailants, one of whom already, I believe, committed suicide in the car right during the standoff, so he won't face any trial. But two shootings, mass shootings, Asian assailants, and the media interest on this is minimal because it's not an opportunity to try to find some tie-in to Trump and MAGA and white supremacy and all this other stuff. And one of the big lies, Clay, the media pushes about mass shootings in particular, mass shootings of 3 or more people, is that it's disgruntled white males who do this. This is what you'll always hear. It's actually not true. It's not true because if you look at the data, what you see is that when it comes to mass shootings, the ethnicity of the shooter is essentially totally in line with their percentage of the population. So mass shooters are spread evenly among they're all male, but among all demographics, white, Hispanic, black, Asian. But yet the media likes to push this storyline of it's, angry white males or, white supremacists who are the ones who are doing all of this, which I think is why they're not really talking about, once again, 2 mass shootings, 18 people killed. You would think, Clay, this would be wall-to-wall coverage.
No, it vanishes if it's not a white guy. And this is the truth. I mean, all of you out there listening know that if there isn't a opportunity to tie this into white supremacy or to far-right extremist culture, then the story just almost automatically vanishes. And the one that is maybe the most emblematic of this to me, Buck, is the shooting that happened in Colorado at Boulder. Remember, they thought that was a white guy just based on pictures that came out of a guy who looked like he was white in terms of you could see his skin. And then it ended up being that he was Middle Eastern, and the story almost immediately vanished. So they initially said, oh, look, another crazy white guy goes in and kills a bunch of people in Boulder, Colorado. And you could actually track the story and how much attention it was getting. And then as soon as it came out that he was of Middle Eastern descent, the story vanished. And a lot of you probably haven't heard anything about that shooting in Colorado since.
Yeah, there is something deeply disturbing when you really dive into it, when you pay attention to it. The Democrat liberal mind has an obsession with the denigration of whiteness all the time, and
yes,
particularly from white liberals.
Tons of white liberals do it.
This is a false virtue signaling fixation that they have with how the evils of whiteness, and you see this as it is evidenced by media coverage of these mass shootings we're talking about. We all know if the mass, instead of saying there are evil people and deeply violently mentally ill people who are spread through all populations, which is true, and understanding that there are going to be people that from all different ethnic groups that are mass shooters, that's going to happen, which is what the data all shows. Instead of looking honestly at that issue because there's no political advantage in it, they try to skew the issue toward all mass shooters. You see this, by the way. I mean, there'll even be blue check commentators. There's a mass shooter and the guy's white. They say, oh, it's always a white mass shooter. It's just not true. But this is one of the lies that they believe and one of the lies that they repeat. And unfortunately, a lot of people, you and I, make a living knowing what actually happens and what the data actually is. A lot of people see, oh, okay, well, CNN says, another white, male shooter, and this is all the mass shooters are white males. It's not reality. And that's why I think, you have to remember the mindset during the war on terror era. We used to call it the GWAT, Global War on Terror. And then they tried to get rid of that term. The Obama administration came in and they wanted to call, this was the fight against Al-Qaeda and later ISIS and all this stuff. They wanted to call it something like overseas contingency operations against violent radical extremism. I'm not kidding. It was actually something that was so long. I remember sitting in Langley when the Obama administration came in and we're all laughing our asses off because we're like, this is ridiculous. This is an encyclopedia. This isn't an operation discussion. But I remember there was a belief that to service the narrative of, oh, we're so scared about Islamophobia, they would always downplay when there was a terrorist incident, oh, we don't know if this person is a Muslim. We don't know what their belief system is. And they would do this. And we all kind of knew, like usually the guy is screaming Allahu Akbar and it's on video and he's shooting something up. You kind of know right away. I think there's a similar mentality among a lot of the Democrat-aligned media now, which is, let's not focus too much on the on any mass shooting that doesn't involve a white perpetrator because we have to tackle the problem of white male mass shooters because they're the ones that do it all the time. It's incongruent. It's what's the phrase I'm trying? Cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, they can't handle it. And just pay attention to this. I mean, we had the Walmart shooter was a black guy, right? In Virginia, went in, shot up the place. We had also in Virginia, in the same way that we have the double Asian shooter, we had the former football player at the University of Virginia who went and shot several of his teammates. 2 black mass shootings in Virginia in like short concert. Now you got 2 Asian mass shooting in short concert. The stories will vanish. But you still hear a lot of talk about the Buffalo shooting, right? Racist white guy goes into a black supermarket, kills people there. And they choose which stories to emphasize. To your point, first of all, mass shootings, if we eliminated every mass shooting, and I think this is important, 98% of murders would still be happening. So we have this idea out there that mass shooting is a huge part of the national murder rate. It's actually the case that if we eliminated them, 49 out of 50 murders would still be happening in this country. Like, they aren't that big part of an issue.
You know what that's also true about? It's also true about modern sporting rifles, a.k.a. assault rifles. You ban assault rifles, 98% of shootings still happen. But they're obsessed with it. You know why? Because they view gun control. Yes, ultimately they want to stop. They want to eliminate the final stopgap against tyranny that the founding fathers enshrined in the Constitution. But every call by a Democrat for gun control in some way is meant to be a thumb in the eye of a white male Republican AR-15 owner. And that's why libs in Brooklyn and Santa Monica and Chicago and DC, they get so excited about it, because it's meant to be, see, somehow you, a law-abiding gun owner who lives in Texas and has, 7 AR-15s and loves to go to the range, you're the problem. It's a neuroses that they have to do this. They want to poke those people in the chest and blame them for mass shootings by lunatics that have nothing to do with those individuals. But it's just meant to be a political cudgel, and that's how they weaponize it.
The only exception to this rule, Buck, that I would point to is the shooting in Texas. And the school shooting is such a unique circumstance. The Hispanic shooter there, they covered, obviously, Uvalde got a massive amount of attention because of who the victims were and where that shooting occurred. But otherwise, the focal point is always on white guys.
That was also on the list of the biggest police failures of all time, up there with the FBI response to Waco, up there, people talk about Ruby Ridge and Waco, and Uvalde is a place of abject law enforcement failure. And you would hope that there'd be important lessons learned from it if that's possible for future law enforcement generations.